in the parking lot out from the admin building,
Uh-huh.
right? They're out there, and the one girl turns to me and goes, "So what are they shooting?" And it was absolutely
Oh,
hilarious. I'm like, she's like, she realized what she said, and I said, "Mr. Evie," and it was kind of funny. She
Do you
obviously didn't mean it that way, but
yeah, do you remember back in the I'll call it in the day where there was a trend of people would go up to like live news feeds and reporters and kind of bomb them there, like go in and just
right,
say something completely inappropriate.
right.
Yeah, I was this close to doing that when I saw WGAL out there. And then I thought, yeah, I do kind of like my job. Even though I'm
Yeah.
sure somewhere deep down Phil would find that absolutely hilarious that I'm doing this because they're here reporting a non story.
Right. I checked the news. It wasn't even like headline news.
No, no.
some people don't have a sense of humor.
They really don't. And it unfortunately just upsets me. It really
Is
does.
it the only thing that upsets you?
No, stupid people. Like, I got on that Parents of Penn Manor Facebook page where all this
Oh,
stuff
it's
started
terrible.
spreading, and I just start reading through comments, and I'm like, you are the dumbest bunch of freaking Karens I have ever seen in one place at one time. You all need to get a hobby, get a job. Shame on your husbands for not taking care of your needs better because you are the worst people on earth. It's just so
Oh.
dumb. So dumb, so ignorant.
Well, when you don't got anything better to do,
Apparently.
the devil does make work of idle hands,
That's
as
right.
they
Apparently.
say.
When they're
It's like,
not meeting your needs, right?
don't you have like a bake sale to go? Like, do something productive with yourselves.
Oh, yeah.
Go to
Other
Chick
than
Fil A.
something.
I went
Go
up
be
to
productive.
I went up to TJ today in the hallway there after I got done talking to you. I looked at him. He's got this big dumb grin on his face, like, like, holy cow, what's going on today? I said, TJ, do you know what I really love the most about my job? And he looks at me like, what? I'm like, every day when I walk into this place, when I come to work, it's like I'm taking a step into Disneyland. And he looks at me like, huh? Like, this place is so fucking full of magic and wonder every single day that I feel like I go to Disney. I thought he was going to about wet himself.
Yeah.
Magical thinking.
Magical.
Yes. That's
Speaking
right.
of magic, the magic of podcasting.
Yes.
Magic of Star Wars, right?
I have
But
such a love-hate relationship with Star Wars at the moment.
well, so this whole podcast came out of a conversation that Dave. I don't even know how we got on this,
I don't know
Dave.
either.
But he came into my room. We were just chatting, and we said we should do a podcast of this. And it was like so, and I don't know how it came out, but it question based like who's the top five worst villains in Star Wars, and then it became as we began to list them, it became difficult to classify them as as the ultimate villain because you have to like have some sort of measure or something that you would say that this is what defines a villain. And yeah, I think one of the brilliance of Star Wars is that, of course, villains are not always the same.
That's it.
They're very dynamic. So that's where this came out of. So we thought we'd do is we leap into the show. We'll do that, and then we'll end with the James Swallow interview. So we knock out the short leave interviews, and then we can get into our um,
Farpoint.
Farpoint interviews. So yeah.
Cool. Let's do it.
So real quickly, just so that I have confirmation, Dave, can you speak so I can hear you?
Check one, check one. Check two.
Right. All right, and hang on a second here.
Check 3, check 4, check 5. He's writing a lot of
Yeah.
checks, hopefully with lots of zeros after the numbers to
All
me.
right, good.
And they'll all
And
bounce.
Miles, can you talk, please?
Check, check, check. Check, check, check.
All right.
Testing,
and,
testing.
Holy Hannah. Hold on a second.
Who is Hannah and why is she so holy? That's what I want to know.
Yes, who is this Hannah?
Who is this holy Hannah? This Hannah of the Grace Sisterhood. I need to know more about her. Avengers in my ADHD brain.
I literally replaced these batteries 5 seconds ago, and they went dead.
Well, you shouldn't put dead batteries in there to begin with.
It could be a battery poltergeist.
Oh, he doesn't even have his headphones on, so he couldn't even hear me. I could simply
It's okay.
I could simply say something like, quit being such a Mennonite and actually buy batteries instead of reusing old ones, and he wouldn't hear it, so it wouldn't be funny.
But it will be funny because later on he'll hear it as he's going through to edit. Because it's still probably recording.
Oh, that'd be perfect.
So my battery's died. My battery literally died. So.
He told you to stop being a Mennonite.
And buy new batteries instead of trying to recycle old ones.
They're, really?
That's the crap I used to say to my grandfather all the time, and he'd look at me and say, "Yeah, you don't know, son."
Okay, can I really quickly have you do a check again? So go ahead, Chrissy.
Check, check.
Okay, good. And Miles
Check, check.
and Dave.
Check, check.
Check, check, check.
Dave, can I have you turned up just a little bit?
Turn me up a little bit.
Yep.
That any better?
And Chrissy, I don't know if you can do it. Can you turn yourself down just slightly?
I can try, maybe. Is this working? I have no idea.
Sounds better. How about you, Dave?
How's this sounding now?
Oh, you just
Any
something
better?
happened.
Something happened?
There was like a loose, like it was like a loose connection.
A loose connection? There shouldn't be a loose connection. Does it sound better now? Besides the one in
speak
my
again.
brain. Besides the loose connection in my brain, I don't think there's...
All right. Well, this should work. I'm getting your signal loud and clear.
Okay, good.
All right. All right. You guys ready to roll?
Let's roll.
All
Let's
right.
make a show.
Let's do it.
Welcome to the SciFi Diner Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Scott Herzog.
And good evening, I am Miles P. McLaughlin.
I'm Chrissy Raffensperger.
And I am apparently the very irreverent Dave Sellers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Very irreverent indeed. Well, it's great to hang out with you guys again. And for those of you that did tune in to the last show that got pulled down, we apologize for the audio on that. And yeah, it's just the way it goes sometimes. So, but here we are, and we did audio checks, and our audio should be working fine. And that's important because I'm really excited about what we're talking about tonight.
Indeed.
Dave, aren't you?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so this came out of a conversation Dave and I had. So don't know, you're tuning in for the first time. Dave and I work at the same school, and we'll come out. Well, he'll come out and hang out in my room a little bit sometimes, or we'll chat in the hall. And it was after our time at Farpoint, which we just got back from a week ago or 2 weeks ago, and we'll talk about that in a future episode here. But one of the things we want to talk about tonight is what are your top 5 Star Wars villains of all time? And this was Dave and I were just chatting about this, and this became a little bit difficult. What made it challenging, Dave, from your end?
Really trying to define what makes a villain here in Star Wars. Because we've got a lot of bad guys, or guys that we would look at in this universe as the bad guy. But to really, at least to try to narrow it down specifically, but to even really define what a villain is. So I think one of the things we want to start with, before our little discussion, is really to try to give a bit of an answer to that question, like a little litmus test as to what is going to define a villain. Like, we all know right now, like, the Emperor and Darth Vader, you know, they're going to be the top 2 probably on anybody's list. So we're going to grant them in as some top stuff, top billing on the villain list. But what makes a villain in Star Wars? What makes a villain, period?
Oh, I'm sure you've had these kind of discussions before in your English class, Scott. Because I mean, the most basic definition, you have your protagonist, which is usually your hero, and you have your antagonist, which usually is the villain, where they're working at cross purposes of your protagonist. But then you get into the moral part of villainy, because you could have two different people on two different sides, and they're both protagonists and antagonists depending on your point of view. Like if you are rooting school district, your team is your protagonist. The opposing team from, I don't know, Conestoga Valley would be your antagonist. That doesn't make them villains. That just makes them working at cross purposes of your desire to win the basketball game or whatever it is. So we can't just take that very basic definition of an antagonist. You have to then start imposing some sort of higher morality upon it, where you're making judgments and value judgments on what that person is doing, their goals, and the means they use to get there. Because you can have noble goals, but then do terrible things to get there. Like, we all might agree that working together as a society to, I don't know, say, eliminate genetic diseases is a great idea. Eugenics is not a good idea if that's how you're going to achieve that goal. So there's lots of different ways of like going about defining heroes, villains, and everything else. Don't let me hog all the conversation, guys. Jump in.
Yeah. Miles, what do you think about this?
So you're going to have some characters in Star Wars that we put the label villain on that have questionable or no ethics. They're just out for themselves, and it's about making a buck. And
Han Solo.
And I was thinking him. And then you have your other villains that's a little more complicated. It's like they want to try to create a better world, but they don't have a problem of doing wrong things for what they feel is the right reason. And so I think the latter makes more, usually makes for more interesting villains. I'm not going to, sometimes a two-dimensional mustache twirling villain is the right character for that story. But sometimes if your villain needs to be a little more, you need to maybe understand, empathize with that person a little more to appreciate the story that's being told. I mean, I'm going to jump franchises for a second. And Christy, you sort of said like a worthy goal of Thanos had a worthy goal. Resources were diminishing. We got to do something. Okay, I got an idea. Let's kill half the population on all the worlds. Bad idea. It's evil. But Thanos says no. We gotta. I will do it. We won't. Indiscriminately, regardless of their station in life. It's about saving. We can't save everybody, so we'll save half the population. I'm the only one who can make the hard decisions and the hard choices and do this, and I'm willing to do it.
And there is actually a whole school of philosophy and philosophical thought that goes into that of we not only have a moral obligation to the people who are currently living, but we have a moral obligation to the future. And some people will say it's okay to justifiably, break a few omelets now in order to save a greater number of people later, which would probably have been his logic of we have to do this here, because if we don't kill half the population now, the planets will go, too far, and then everyone will die. Because I think that's what happened to his planet. So his whole thing was, we can't save the whole population. We can only save half the population. And, it's that surely, killing one person to save 4 people tied to the railroad tracks is better. I'm not saying it is. I'm just using that is a philosophical argument that I am familiar with.
In a logical sense, the needs of the many would outweigh the needs of the few. In that
Right.
sense.
Right,
So
but we all agree Thanos was not doing the right thing.
Of course, we.
If you say so.
Some people would argue that.
No, I'm just kidding.
Well, there are
Dave's-
people who would make an
Dave's
argument.
snapping his fingers.
It's not working!
It's like, gosh darn it.
Yeah. So I think it sounds like we have I think motive seems like an important part of villainy. And we said out for self, but a kind of a part of the out for self thing is our motivation maybe control? Is it self-gain? I think those things are kind of important there.
Yeah, I mean, John Wick going on a murder spree because someone killed his dog. I mean, he was out for himself. But in his defense, they did kill a dog.
Yeah.
Now they deserved it.
They did.
They all
Yeah, they
tried to
did
cheat, and they stole
absolutely.
his car.
He is definitely not the villain here.
No, he did nothing wrong.
Yeah.
But we've also
To be fair, people were trying to kill him too. So.
Well, true, but I mean, we have seen.
So it was all self-defense.
I mean, we could, but we see that. And I'm sure if we went into like the Star Wars cartoons, we would see plots.
I'll be right back.
I'll just keep talking. It's fine.
You were saying, Chrissy.
I'm sure we would look and see plot points of people who looked like they were, evil, but were doing it to defend their home planet, or were doing it out of revenge. I want to say it's been a long time since I watched the Star Wars cartoon. There was a point where, was it Ahsoka was trying to help some like rebels on a planet that had been taken over. I need to Google it. But like, you would see that they would undertake guerrilla warfare tactics, which, in the Clone Wars, I guess was okay, but then later on, I don't think what they were doing. I wish I could remember that episode.
In Rogue One, I mean, we had they really explored moral ambiguity with some of the rebels. I mean, the lead character in Rogue One, he shot his informant in the back because he didn't want his informant getting caught and ratting him out.
Right. So,
I mean,
I do think that like we do take into account motive, and I mean that is one of the things that people use when they're looking at like crimes and charges, is they're looking at someone's motive. I mean, you cannot charge someone with a hate crime without the motive of hate based on some sort of protected class. So as a society, we have determined that the motive for someone to do something is an important piece of the criminality.
Yeah.
In our criminal law. So, but like how, like where does the self-serving versus, because someone might be like, well, I have to be the one to take over the kingdom. Only I have the proper moral judgment to, do these things, and I will make the difficult decisions because I am so virtuous.
There's that.
I chimed in at the right time. Chrissy's virtuous, and she's making the difficult decision.
Yes, and that is why you should crown me Queen of America instead of voting for a president in 2024.
Hey, if you ran, Chrissy, I'd be apt to vote for you. So.
I'm now old enough to be president.
Could I be your Secretary of Offense?
Sure.
Yes.
And his offense will be, I'm going to go into every diplomatic meeting and threaten them with the bomb in order to get what we want.
It's going to be like this. Listen, guys. Let me tell you how this is going to go.
See, we now have ourselves a nice little villainy thing going on.
That's right.
He's spending a nuclear bomb.
Apparently.
I'm just gonna be power hungry. There we go.
All right. Well, let's. Why don't we leap into talking about some villains? And
It's a good idea.
and see where we and see how we tear these down a little bit.
Just be
I'm gonna start with
forewarned.
Miles' list here, and just kind of walk through them. Let's start with your honorable mention. We'll start with the weakest and go down through. So, Miles, who did you have as your honorable mention?
Jabba the Hutt.
Okay. So,
And this is why he is a good villain in Star Wars. He is amoral. He has gotten a lot of people to work for him. I mean, physically, I mean, okay, he's a big blob with 2 arms, so I don't know what physically he can do, but he still wields a lot of power. Well, that is true. Yeah, but he has got a way to get his claws into people to do his bidding, and he's got this criminal empire that spans the galaxy, and just he has the power to get people to do for him, and I thought he was great in Return of the Jedi. Just the way he got people to do stuff for him, and just the way he acted. He got Princess Leia to degrade herself by wearing that slave outfit and hanging out with him.
and it was the best thing that happened to teen boys in the late in the 80s.
It's the gift that keeps on giving. I mean,
I was going to say the best part about Jabba the Hutt was the Orion slave girls.
And so
Wrong franchise,
there's still
brother.
Many lovely women that cosplay
Oh yeah,
at conventions till this day, and
Miles didn't catch it.
I know. I'm surprised.
I'm gonna have.
Anyways, what is it? The Twi'lek slave girls.
Twi'leks, yes, the Twi'lek slave girls. He said Orion slave girls. I was like, wrong franchise.
Streams,
I did, but anyways, yeah.
It's all right.
Okay.
I was on a rant.
I knew what you meant.
I know. I'm sorry, I interrupted your rant. So, are we in agreement? Does Jabba the Hutt? He's self-serving. He's out for himself.
And helped to contribute to the fall of Anakin Skywalker. Because the Hutt Empire held him and his mother, like, they originally, so
Slaves.
what's his face didn't originally own Anakin and his mother. He was bought from the Hutts.
Yeah, Watto.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Watto. So right there is planting the seeds for the dark side, for Emperor Palpatine to come in and get them to blossom.
Stretch, but okay.
Yeah, maybe. But I would say the catalyst really was the Sand People, and the death of his mother is really the catalyst. Because that's the point that says, I will not lose, after this, I will not lose one more person I love. And that becomes like the driving force for Anakin. But no, Jabba certainly had his hands in that. You're right.
Well, I mean,
Another
had
great
his
thing
mother
about
not been
Jabba-
held in slavery, she may have been able to go.
Right. Absolutely.
So I'm just saying that, like that whole thing, the Hutts themselves helped contribute to that.
Another great thing about Jabba was the way he terminated your employment was he opened the floor and you fell down and you got ate by a rancor.
Yeah.
Just
So probably the lack of value of human life certainly would fit in there, unless it was self-serving. It was serving him.
I don't.
and he kind of comes more as maybe a little more two-dimensional as far as villains go. There's very little complexity with Jabba the Hutt. It's about his self-serving, and keeping his empire going. And if you screw up, he'll have you frozen in carbonite and have you on display, or open up the floor and you fall down a pit and rancor eats you. There was just something very traditional as far as a villain goes when it came to Jabba the Hutt.
Or you get put in a slave girl outfit.
I don't look at Jabba as a villain at all. When I look at Jabba...
Why is that?
Why is that? So, I see Jabba operating within a system. And Jabba, to me, is nothing more than a businessman. Running his corporation there of illegal activities. But his business as it is. That there's no overlaying purpose and drive to evil that would, to me anyway, make him a villain. He is very much in it for himself. He's in it to make money. But so is every corporation that we know of right now. He terminated your employment by dropping you into a rancor pit. Corporations will end up terminating your employment and possibly ruining your livelihood if they no longer have a need for you. He's a businessman.
Yeah, but I would also categorize the business people as evil. Objectively.
Well, why? But why? If I'm a bounty hunter and I'm working for Jabba the Hutt, there's a mark. I'm going to get him. I'm getting paid for bringing him back to you. I'm ambivalent to really what it is. There's no real evil intent. This is a job for me. In a galaxy that...
He is a slaver, though. And that makes it... He's not just a business. These people that are enslaved, they aren't earning an income from him.
But again, we're judging that level of business by our morality and our standard. It may not have been the same there. Like, slavery was once a very big thing, a very big economy at one point in the world.
To say what a villain is, we are using our moral standard.
Correct.
We are. And I would argue in the Star Wars universe that slavery was not viewed favorably. So if we're going by that moral, if we're going to say, okay, we can't impose our moral code, well, let's impose the Star Wars universe moral code, the Jedi moral code.
Yeah, let's do that. How many slaves did the Jedi come in and free? 1. Anakin Skywalker on a game of a chance cube. The powerful great Jedi Order. I am going to be very contrarian with a lot of this stuff today, just so you guys are aware.
You should.
I love it. All the salt.
Yeah. They didn't come and take their great presence and power at the height of their power, to go free slaves because it was immoral. They didn't impose that on these business.
And brainwash them as part of their cult.
Ah, yes, they didn't they? Interesting how that works, isn't it?
They didn't. I don't think there was so much kidnapping.
They took them from their families.
They didn't steal, and they took them, but it was kind of many times a voluntary thing.
Oh, the kid volunteered for that?
No, the parents volunteered. The kid.
Parents offered their children up to a religious cult.
Yep.
And yes, we do that with our kids as Christians and religious people. We bring them in. We introduce them to the church and indoctrinate them to a point. Yeah, if for any other poor term, in a sense, yes.
Well, I mean, we do get all of our children in the United States to pledge allegiance to the flag daily. I'm just saying, if that's not indoctrination, I don't know what is.
I'm a teacher, and I can tell you for a fact that not all of them pledge allegiance to the flag.
No, they do not. You're lucky to get them standing up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was one of those children.
Next.
Yeah.
Next
so I hear you. I think that Jabba, like, if you view Jabba as a business person, then, like, I hear what you're saying. Like, don't get me wrong, but I also would say that there is very little redeeming quality from the moral sense when I look at Jabba, and the way I don't know, the way he treated people that did not align with his purpose,
Oh,
and that becomes a little bit problematic.
oh, I'm not arguing that he ain't a piece of crap. I mean,
It's kind of like you look at, some of the other people who are businessmen. I think of the one cartoon you had. What's that pirate guy? Hondo.
Oh, Hondo.
He was always like, "Oh, it's just business,"
It's just business.
But there were times when he was very genuinely not just business. He did go out of his way to serve a greater purpose.
Because he was chaotic good.
Yes.
Yes.
So, like, again, it goes back to those motives of like, okay, completely self-serving, no real outside moral compass other than what is in it for me. And if you are not there for me, then you are superfluous, and I'm just going to get rid of you because, quite frankly, your voice irritates me. Go get fed to my pet, versus someone else who's like, well, it's just business. I'm not obligated to help you, but I'm also not going to go out of my way to harm you. So,
Yeah.
now
All right,
someone
well,
might...
let's move on to the next one. Miles, what was your number 5?
So I picked Moff Gideon from Mandalorian, played brilliantly by Giancarlo Esposito. Scott and I actually met him at Farpoint a few years back.
Fantastic person.
So the worst he gets is good as far as whatever villains he plays. His ambitions kept getting larger every season. He wanted to kidnap Grogu. He got the black saber. He wanted to make clones of himself, his own clone army, and he made his own Mandalorian armor, and which eventually became his undoing. But yeah, I like Moff Gideon as a villain, and I thought it was interesting watching the last season where Luke comes in to save the day, and Gideon is so scared he tries to off himself. So it was interesting that he was so scared of Luke Skywalker that he was going to take, he wanted to kill himself.
So, how do you guys feel about Moff Gideon?
I mean, certainly he fit the bill. I mean, he was in season 1. He was experimenting on a baby. I think most of us can agree that is morally wrong. One should not be experimenting on a baby for your own self-gain.
To be fair, the baby was 50 years old, just saying.
It was still a baby in his developmentally.
Who's being contrary now?
God. It's like, listen, the moment I don't bring the salt, they're just all about it.
So I think that certainly seems well. So he's not necessarily self-serving. He's serving the Empire. I think ultimately he seems to be a part of a larger game afoot. In the Mandalorian, though, as we see him, he certainly is the antagonist, and certainly is seems malevolent in his intent toward the people we're following, whether it be Grogu, the Mandalorian, etc.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I didn't watch all of it, but I got the sense that he was basically abandoning his imperial role of what he was supposed to be doing. Even if you said, like, okay, he was serving in the Empire, serving that higher cause, he truly believed in that the Empire was good for the galaxy, blah, 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 blah. He then just was all about himself as his own kind of like warlord kind of a thing going on, and just like marauding around as a loose cannon.
But he was also a member of a cabal, we'll say, of former Imperials who were seeking to overthrow the newly established legitimate government of the New Republic and reinstitute their tyranny.
Right.
He was certainly a conspirator and a heavy player in that.
And the real question, the real question becomes in that, and there's hints of it in The Mandalorian, is the head of this cabal, Thrawn, right? Which we'll get to Thrawn a little bit later, but you would say that he's certainly in that way serving. Maybe what he's doing is he's kind of a loose cannon, as you said. But I think that there's certainly a lot to be argued that he is doing this for himself, but also for what he views as being the Empire.
He's what I call a true believer. His gospel, his religion is the Empire, and he's trying to bring it back.
Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts about Moff Gideon?
I mean, he seems pretty cut and dry in my book.
Yeah. How about Balin Skull? I'm going to take yours, Miles. Number 4, you had is Balin Skull. Tell us a little bit about why you placed him here.
I don't have as much thoughts. I just like the way he carried himself throughout the whole series. He knew. Yes, he was helping Morgan bring back bring back Thrawn, but I don't know. There was just he's interesting to me because he carried himself with this regalness and dignity, and he knew he was not going back to the galaxy. Sadly, we never know what happens because sadly the actor who played him passed away before the show.
Oh no, we'll know. He's back in Ahsoka too.
Okay, so they filmed. I didn't know that. So they filmed.
No, I think they did something else. It's not film, but he's back. So either they replaced the actor or got the permission to use his likeness.
Okay. So. A former Jedi who is disillusioned with the Jedi Order, and I think he's one of those who thinks he's doing the right thing by trying to replace the better system is the Empire than the Republic, and so he obviously has some bad feelings towards the Jedi. Not a Sith, but something kind of in between. But I just appreciate the way the actor played him throughout Ahsoka.
So I would definitely agree with that. I loved the actor. I thought he was well played. I'm arguing with myself internally as to whether I view him really as a villain, because as you said, he's disillusioned by the Jedi, and maybe for some very valid reasons. Right? He doesn't go into all those reasons in the episodes we see him in. But we do see in him, he believes that somehow what he's doing will set humanity or the galaxy on a right course. And we don't know all the machinations of that because obviously the story was called Ahsoka and not Balin Skull, so we didn't necessarily focus on all the backstory that we got with some of the other characters in the series. But
I would say that some of the actions he takes are kind of villainous. I mean, him and his apprentice.
I mean, there are a lot. Sorry, I think I was having some lag in my connection.
Okay. Miles, go ahead. What were you saying?
I was just going to say, if you take certain actions, you're kind of a villain. I mean, him and his apprentice board a New Republic ship. They kill a bunch of officers and crew to bust out Morgan. That's still, that may be what you call to justify yourself doing the wrong thing for the right reason, but you're doing some illegal activities. You're at least a criminal.
From a certain point of view.
Well, from a legal point of view, you're a criminal.
Whose legal system?
Well, right now it's the New Republic that's the government that's in charge. So I would argue
So Luke Skywalker and Han Solo breaking Leia out in episode 1, the first movie, were clearly villains running around the Death Star, killing those innocent stormtroopers who were doing nothing more than but their jobs.
Oh, okay. So
what they were doing was illegal.
Yeah, because the current government was saying these prisoners should be there.
And then those terrorists blew up the Death Star.
Was the New Republic a oppressive government regime?
Well, I actually don't have enough information to make that final determination.
Would you think the Empire was a tyrannical government regime?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Not if you stayed within the law.
Yeah, you could live a normal life as long as you towed the line, you were fine.
As long as you operated inside the law.
And some people...
You're going to love my number 2. Oh.
Well, penis is the number 2. It's obviously shit.
Chrissy, I didn't know you liked potty humor.
Oh, I knew that. I knew that a long time ago.
It's one of those things where I was like, I just can't resist.
Can't pass it up.
It's just...
So, Balin Skull, you know, as far as being a villain, I feel like I don't have enough information to make a really good call. Like we see him for such a limited time, and on surface, you can say, well, he's fighting against Ahsoka and the New Republic, and we're pro New Republic as you're kind of supposed to be, but it sounds like he has in himself so he reminds me of Dooku a little bit. There's this regalness that he brings to being a villain that you would say, well, I'm not certain that he's absolute evil.
Dooku might be one of those guys thinking he has to do the wrong thing for the right reason.
Yeah.
And keep it. These names I'm given, these are villains I just liked. There's not. It's.
Oh, we're critiquing them whether you like them or not, Miles. We're totally critiquing them.
I mean,
you guys are gonna pick me apart. Don't worry.
Colonoscopy is not for another few more years.
Yeah.
So. What? Yeah, and I didn't watch enough of Ahsoka to make like a really good determination. But I mean, I don't know if there are aspects of the New Republic in this version of it, which I will still attest is expensive fan fiction, and the other one is the real stuff. But you know, I digress. To be like, is it doing things that are oppressive? Are there things that it's doing that aren't really that great? Is it delivering on the promises? I mean, if you tear down one system and install, you know, a different kind of regime, are you doing the right thing? If someone's like, you know what, we had it better under this. I mean, you had the French Revolution.
Did, some didn't.
I mean, you have the French Revolution that got rid of a really oppressive government that didn't even make sure the people were fed. But then you had a lot of people getting guillotined.
And
lot.
Ask the people of Alderaan how they like the Empire.
Well, you can't because they're gone. But
that's how you
we could ask Kenobi. He heard 1,000 voices dying and screaming,
crying out all at once. The New Republic.
He's dead too.
Yeah, the New Republic, if we remember, was also rounding up former Imperials and putting them into, for better or for worse, re-education camps.
Boy, this sounds like 1984 all over again.
We did see that in... Was that Andor? That was Andor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. I think... Yeah. Yeah, it had to have been Andor.
I think it was Ahsoka.
No.
Yeah, because Andor took place during the Empire, right?
It was a one-off episode of Ahsoka that you thought, well, how does this relate to anything?
Was it?
So I mean,
Yeah,
I
I'm pretty
think
sure it was.
Or was the Mandalorian? We saw some of these people introduced during the Mandalorian, but
Yeah, I'm trying to remember which one it was. 'Cause I remember they were going in and stealing like
No, it was the Mandalorian.
It was Mandalorian. Okay.
so. I mean, you have some things that are oppressive that they're doing. I mean, you can make arguments like, well, this one is better. I mean, the Empire helped quash some petty squabbling. I mean, the whole episode 1, you see basically the Trade Federation can come and invade a planet, and the old Republic is just gonna sit there and be like, no, we're going to ignore it. It's fine.
They brought
because of politics and who has the money and who's paying them and all of that stuff.
They brought about a safe and secure society.
Exactly. It was a safe and secure society, provided you followed the very narrow rules to be a safe and secure society.
Yep.
Which I think, when you look at most utopias or ideas of utopia, the only way to create it is to have a totalitarian regime, because how else are you going to control everyone to make this utopia?
Next up.
Okay. Sorry. I digress with my philosophy.
Did you say you had a list, Dave?
Oh yeah, I got a couple.
Do you want to
well, let's
pull
hear
one
some
from?
of Dave's.
Yeah, let's pull one from your list.
Okay. My number 5 is Dooku. For the fact that he was integral in Palpatine's usurpation and his false flag event creating start of fueling this war that ended up bringing him to power in the fall of the Republic. He was a knowing and willing participant working for the Separatists. To me, his intent in fueling this and acting in with the subterfuge to, again, undermine the long-standing sitting Republic government puts him at a number 5 for a villain for me.
No, that's good. He was a very important cog in Darth Sidious's regime to, get this thing going. I was going to ask, was he the one that hired the Caminos for the clone army?
I believe.
Darth Tyrannus.
Oh, no, that was Darth... No. Dooku was Darth Tyrannus. Master SciFi Diner.
SciFi Diner.
Yeah.
Master.
Yeah, he was... And I don't know who he was. I don't think we ever really...
He's mentioned as a one-off.
Yeah. He's the one who ordered up the clone army.
And Dooku had a cool lightsaber.
Oh yeah, that curved hilt on that thing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And he was a former Jedi.
Can't hear you, Chrissy.
I mean, that's how you know they're a villain, if they have a cool lightsaber.
A red one.
The coolness factor of the lightsaber design is directly correlated to your villainy. That's why, Maul should be up there with everybody, because he has a really cool lightsaber. Kylo did not have as cool of a lightsaber as he should have had.
Oh, his was like...
why he sucks as a villain.
No, that was just JJ and poor writing.
Who is my number one
villain of all? Yes, JJ Abrams.
Listen, it goes Kathleen Kennedy, Ryan Johnson. Those are my Star Wars villains.
Damn it, you took my thunder.
When we were talking about SciFi Diner, he was actually an apprentice of Sith Lord Darth Tyrannus of Dooku.
Ah.
Dooku was his Jedi master.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Or maybe not. Maybe it doesn't matter. But anyways.
Well, but it makes sense.
So he's definitely a villain. I guess I was over here just weighing like how much did Count Dooku really know of the Emperor's plan? Like I like he's obviously a pawn. He's playing in and he's, in charge of the separatist army and playing into that whole thing. But like how much did he know? He obviously knew that he was trying for power, but did he really understand the power play that the Emperor was pulling with the clone army and so on?
As a
Do you think? I was going to ask. Did he think he had a part to play after Darth Sidious was successful? Because Darth Sidious just treated him like a loose end.
Yeah.
And the look of surprise on his face when he told Anakin to kill him.
Mm-hmm. Do it.
Do it. Yeah. The look on his face of betrayal from his master scared him, shocked him, and at the end realized maybe he was only just a pawn for him with all that he did. He very well may have believed, and it wouldn't shock me if he did believe, that he thought his role would be far more lasting.
Oh yeah. No. Good. Why? I like him as a villain. He definitely belongs in the villain list. I mean, how villainous is he? I'm not sure that he's the most villainous, but
not the most.
I think there are some things, but he's up there certainly.
Yeah.
Well, he gave Obi-Wan and Anakin a run for their money.
Yep, he did.
Twice.
He did. Yes. So tell me a little bit, Dave. Give me another one off your list.
Let's see. For the sake of time, I'll jump down to number 3.
Okay, who's your number 3?
The Grand Inquisitor. The true devotee, the true believer of the Sith. His only job was to hunt down remaining Jedi and eliminate them.
So this is the guy that we see in Kenobi.
Yes, in Kenobi and Clone Wars.
The animated series,
yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Very smart, very cunning, deceitful, and was not above collateral damage to get his prey, along with the rest of the Inquisitors.
Listen, there was a spider. The house had to be burned. That's how
that's
it
it.
is.
Yeah. Yeah. Grand Inquisitor. He's my number 3 villain. Because for the simple fact he was a true believer.
Yeah, and yeah. No, I there's very little. I can't find much redemptive about the true Inquisitor. But,
yep.
All right.
My number 2 for time.
Sure, Chrissy.
Yeah.
Do you have any on your list?
That we
I'm happy
haven't
to.
that we haven't talked about.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, I think everyone would say Thrawn needs to be in the top 5. I don't know if it would be like my number, like where he would be.
So this is my problem with Thrawn.
Mm-hmm.
Thrawn, and so if we're coming out with just what we've seen on television, then we have one Thrawn. But Dave, I know, and I have encountered what I would argue is canon Thrawn in the novel universe, not the Legends books, but actually the modern universe.
Mm-hmm.
That plays into Star Wars, and he's not, in my opinion, the villain. He's calculating. He's serving the What's their race, Dave? I can't remember.
The Chiss.
The Chiss Empire. Like he's serving them, and he has this greater good. And yes, he's aligned with the Empire, but I don't view him as a true believer in the Empire.
No. No, he
You
came.
want to comment on this a little bit?
He came when he arrived here in this Star Wars in the Star Wars universe that we know. He was trying to find help to help defend his people against an enemy that they were still trying to figure out, that was extremely powerful. And he was kind of off on his own. The rest of the Chiss Ascendancy did not think that this was a real thing and important, but he was driven to do it and wanted to find help. So he ended up traveling well away from his home and wound up meeting Anakin Skywalker at that point, before he turned, and ended up serving in the Imperial military. Thrawn is nothing more than a soldier who his loyalty to the Empire is based solely on the promise that they're going to help him in the end find and defeat whatever enemy is threatening his world. Now, unfortunately, we never get to see yet any of that transpire, but that was his intent. So, as a good soldier, as a good commander, he just carries out his orders. There's no additional. There's no. He's not trying to gain himself any kind of prestige or influence or power beyond what he needs for home.
It's interesting you say that, Dave, because I look at Thrawn too, and I say, yes, he does. He's a good soldier, but there are times where he does not do what the Empire wants.
Correct.
In the books, and so he's not following the Empire hook, line, and sinker when it goes against what he believes is the right thing to do.
Correct.
And so there's that. He's towing a fine line. This is what complicates Thrawn to me. And right now, the Ahsoka Thrawn, absolutely, he's supposed to be his villain. We really don't know much about him, and he's one-dimensional. But those of us who had
that's the one that I know, because
right.
I haven't read the books.
Right.
Oh,
or if you did, you may have read the Heir to the Empire trilogy, which is kind of now a part of the Legends. But the Thrawn that Timothy Zahn has written in the series is makes you view Thrawn in a way that's, if he's a villain, he is entirely too complex to be just written off as he's the villain of Star Wars. He's way more than that.
But that's to me what makes him a good villain for a enjoyment of a reader or an enjoyment of consumption. Because I mean, Saturday morning cartoon villains are all well and good, and they have their place, but
Right. Well, see, this is my difficulty. So the difficulty in labeling Thrawn as a villain is the same difficulty I have with labeling Vader as a villain. So I'll chime in here with one of mine. We have to talk about Vader as a villain, but Vader when? He doesn't, his intent throughout the prequels is all to save the people he loves. No one would argue that is a bad ambition, except when it becomes he will do it at all costs at the expense of other people. Then he begins to stray. But even in the end, there's this redemption arc that he has. And so where are you going to point at Vader and say, well, clearly the villain of the story? Because there's a lot in Vader I'm looking at and saying, this does not seem villainous, and he's being manipulated. I mean, arguably was manipulated into becoming Vader, right? And so his intent is certainly not entirely malevolent, in my opinion. and that's what makes him. That's what makes me hard to say. He reminds me of Thrawnel. He's complex. He's um, man. I remember reading. Was it Matthew Stover or Michael Stover wrote the novelization for um, the what was movie three?
Revenge of the Sith. Yeah.
Yeah, he wrote the novelization for that, and I will tell you, I read that novelization five, six, seven times because it did something. Number one, it redeemed the movie for me. It redeemed the movie because it was so. You got inside Vader's head and Anakin's head, and you realized how much he was being manipulated, and it created in me an empathy for Vader that I never had in any of the series. And so, fantastic read, worth buying an Audible, in my opinion.
Well, I think you can certainly have empathy and understanding for someone who's doing crap things and still objectively say, you're doing crap things, and your reasons, while make sense, are still crap. And that makes you a villain.
What makes him a bad guy?
Yeah,
Does it make him a villain?
Right.
Well, again, I don't think we ever sat down and figured out exactly what makes a villain.
Right.
Because I mean, I went into all the aspects to consider, but I don't think we ever definitively said this is what makes someone objectively villain. We got to the point where we figured out that someone's motivations has an impact on their villainy. However, I do think that there are objective moral things that are good to do and bad to do.
I mean, so let me put it this way: how far would you go to save the person you love? Like, what qualifies that if you know this person's going to die unless you help them? What's going to where do you draw the line in this?
Well, I wouldn't murder someone else.
But if it saves the person you love, do you just let them die then?
Yes. I mean, the people that I love would not want me to murder people to save them. I'm pretty sure most of them. Okay, maybe my brother would be the exception to that rule. But,
see? No, I'm just kidding.
But I'm saying my brother would not murder me to do that. But that does not mean that I would do that for my brother. I mean, now if someone said to me, "You have to choose," there's some. Let's just say that, that I get kidnapped by Saul or something, and he tells me, would you like to play a game? And you can either choose to save the man you love, or you can kill this random stranger. I mean, okay, I've been kidnapped by a psychopath. He's gonna kill one of them. I don't have a choice at this point. I will, then, yes, okay, random stranger I don't care about for the man that I love. But barring that kind of weird scenario, no, I would not go on a murder spree to save someone that I love. That's just not. There's a moral compass that I have that's no, I'm not going to do that. I wouldn't want someone to come and murder my loved ones to save theirs. Why is their life worth more because they love them than that other person's? That is not okay. So to say that because I care about someone, their life is now more valuable than someone else's life, how is that okay? What gives me some higher moral authority and more value to say that my love is more valuable than someone else's love?
Again, when we talk about the murder of Anakin, right? The Anakin and what he did under the Emperor, he was being manipulated by the Emperor, who told him that the Jedi had turned against the Republic, and if he was serving the Republic as the good soldier he was, then him killing the Jedi made perfect sense to him and logical. And plus, arguably, this guy held the power to keep the ones he loves from dying.
But he didn't, though, in the end. Everybody he loved ended up dying.
Right, but that's not. But in the moment,
Relevant.
he doesn't know that.
And when he after he finds his mother, who is near death, his killing the Sand People is a reaction to what happened. It's not, he doesn't need to kill all the Sand People. He lashes out.
That was
in revenge.
vengeance. Yeah.
That was
vengeance.
And ladies, this is a red flag. If your man goes on vengeance killings, don't date him. Don't marry him. Okay?
Yeah, but he was honest with his woman about this. He said, "Look, I killed them.
Red
all
flag
of them.
on the field. Get out of that relationship. Not a relationship.
But he
you
just
should be in.
lost his mother."
What more of a test of loyalty would you need than to know I will rain down hellfire against anyone who dares come against the ones I love? You talk about loyalty and dedication.
Oh, yeah, man.
Oh,
Absolutely.
he ain't even gonna look at another woman, much
No
less
one's
cheat
gonna
on you
mess
at that
with my
point, and ain't nobody gonna lay a finger on you.
Yeah, but he's unstable as fuck.
But not when it came to her.
Actually, that is a red flag for domestic abuse.
To be fair, yes, even when it came to her, when he got in her way, they were Mustafar.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Did he not choke her for turning against him?
Yeah, but he didn't really kill her. It was a love wound.
No, that is domestic violence. Red flag on the field. Get out of that.
Domestic abuse, Scott.
Hey, listen, all right, he just killed a bunch of kids for her. He just killed all kinds of people for her. And she goes and betrays him? I'd be kind of pissed, too.
With the enemies of the Republic, the Jedi,
He
feels betrayed.
Not okay.
Especially after he just spent the first 19 years of his life being told he's the chosen one, for God's sake. I mean what's this gonna
raise your child
do?
To be a chosen one.
I mean, the midichlorians just kind of went wild inside of him.
Hormones is an excuse.
Oh my. Oh
So
my.
I'd say Darth Vader's a good villain because he was.
I think it's hard to call. I think there's no doubt he's supposed to be viewed as a bad guy, but
Yes.
I have a hell of a lot more empathy for Darth Vader than I do for Darth Tyrannus. And then for I just not my I feel empathy. I feel sorry for him, and though I would argue that yes, he probably fits the bill of a villain.
I would see him as somebody. Yes, he has great power, but he also does not have a strong ethical core. And
That's what happens when your mother's taken from you and killed.
He's been raised by a Jedi for the last 10 years. There should have been some lessons instilled to control.
Yeah, but he came.
Anger.
But he came way older than he was supposed to.
And this is why we steal the children and indoctrinate them early.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
go ahead, Dave.
So he's here, right?
So Yoda was right.
Well,
Yes.
That's right.
Get them young.
the Jedi didn't help him. The Jedi, every time he started feeling these things, right? He's been told he's the chosen one. He's bringing balance to the Force. He's got this great important role from a young age. When he first comes in, he's learning this. Every time he starts dealing with those human emotions, and all the Jedi tell him to do is suppress those feelings, ignore those things. Don't follow that. Don't go to here. What is that to a teenager? Meanwhile, he continues to get closer to Palpatine. Palpatine's like the uncle he never had, who's listening to him, who's helping guide him through these feelings, providing him actual emotional support.
They also give him PTSD by using him as a child soldier in their war, and then having him be responsible for another child soldier in the war to indoctrinate her. I'm just going to point out.
And there you go.
Red flags, and it is no wonder the man has PTSD.
And there you go. And
also attachment issues.
He even vents his frustration out of there because he believes that Obi-Wan's jealous of him because he's supposed to be this chosen one. He's not being guided along. He's just being told to forget how he feels. The Jedi Council and Mace Windu never liked the guy anyway from the very beginning. They've done nothing.
Why?
Well, but again, even for when he was a little tyke and innocent and did nothing wrong.
Maybe they knew something.
Well, maybe they did. But they continued to hold him.
Can't arguing with the midichlorians. Don't argue with.
That's right. They keep holding him at arm's length, never really giving him what he needed. They were stuck to the same traditional Jedi training, and he's not able to handle this. And he gets drawn closer and closer and closer. And then when he gets to the age where Palpatine really starts manipulating him, he falls in love. He's got Padme knocked up. They're married in secret because the rest of them won't allow it or understand. And then he's told that they're betraying the Republic. It's no wonder he ended on the path he was on. The Jedi were not innocent in this. They did not help him along the way.
No, not at all. They most certainly. I mean, it's one of those things where having worked with kids who are troubled and seeing them on the cusp as teenagers, I can completely understand and empathize with being a product of a really crappy environment and not getting the love, support, and the guidance that you need, especially as someone who is, like, we're just going to label him a gifted child. And most of the time when you have gifted children, they also have other areas in their lives, usually emotional, that they lag behind their peers in. Because they're given all of this advanced stuff, but then they're not always emotionally equipped to handle some of the advanced stuff. And then they also don't know always how to relate to their peers because they're so ahead of them in other places. So you have this person who, would have been an outsider in his own peer group among all the other Padawans because he didn't grow up with them. He doesn't always understand them. And then, he's probably outstripping them, which doesn't make him the most popular kid at school, I'm sure, and gets special attention for being
especially not when he's stripping them.
Yeah, so, I mean, Scott, I'm sure you see this in your classrooms with the gifted kids. I mean, how many of the awkward and just emotionally not the most mature people?
Yeah, definitely.
And, and they're told by their parents and their teachers how special they are, so they have this inflated sense of ego, and then someone comes along and threatens that ego. I mean, being a former gifted kid, would joke around about how I was terrible at sports because God was going to keep me humble every time I had to go to gym class. That was enough to knock any ego out of me. I was terrible. I was basically putting me on your team was giving the other team the best player. I'm serious. So, I can completely empathize. But at the end of the day, you have to make that choice. You have to decide whether or not to go murder some younglings.
Exactly.
Hey, if we're working for the people against the Empire, just kidding.
I would not go drown kittens because they were owned by a Nazi. That is not okay.
So let me. So I feel like we talked about Darth Vader, but we do have to. We can't end without certainly talking about Palpatine himself. And we're missing that, like, Grievous is in there. We haven't even talked about Grievous.
Or Maul.
Maul. I think Maul's the other one. So let's talk about these. We bring up these.
Kylo Ren.
Oh my gosh, we need another episode of it. Just talking about those 5. But any of these you want to hit here before we need to go into the interview that we have tonight?
Well, my number 1 is Tarkin. You were a career military officer in the New Republic. You came from a military background of good, honorable service. And at the end, you resort to mass genocide just to make a statement.
And he's pretty callous about it, too.
Very callous about it. Very. He is my number one, just from sheer body count alone. He's my number one.
Notice no one's
arguing.
I'm just processing the contrast between Tarkin and Thrawn in your mind.
Because Thrawn killed. He was Thrawn was a soldier. He fought.
So was Tarkin.
Yes, Thrawn's body count would wind up on the battlefield in combat. Tarkin blew up a freaking planet with no battle, no
with innocent civilians.
Innocent civilians, everything. Thrawn has not killed civilians.
That's right.
Could Tarkin have made the argument, much like our argument about Thanos, that by killing them and having this show of power, the shock and awe, he was hoping, didn't work, but he was hoping that other planets would be so terrified that it would quash any rebellion and thus bring peace, and then they would have to continue to have battles with rebellion and such.
You're probably right. So then that would fill into my number 2 slot, because that wouldn't have been necessary if it weren't for my number 2 villain, Mon Mothma, who funded and led a terrorist organization against the established government.
Interesting.
That led to the deaths of the entire planet of Alderaan and countless others in an ongoing precipitous war.
You are being contrarian.
I really am. I told Scott this on the other day we were talking. I was like, I'm going to be so bad at...
I like this all, and I think that we have a bunch of villains that we still have yet to discuss. And I think that maybe we should do a part 2.
I think we're going to have to do a part 2 and just put a pin in this, because I see your...
Yeah, because we haven't done Palpatine. There's a lot of people we haven't talked about yet that I think are worthy of being talked about. So let's table these, and we'll come back to it like in maybe the next episode. We can aim on doing this, or if we want to do a movie for the next episode.
Let's cleanse our palate. Let's do something.
I raised you a Luke Skywalker. I'm trying to murder Kylo Ren. That's
and I raised you a Han Solo. Yeah. All right. So we could totally we can do something else for the next time, and maybe come back to this in like 2 episodes from now or something, and I'd be all for that.
We'll do that.
So we'll just have to talk about. Before we diatribe, we'll talk off air what we're going to do next time we get together. But Miles, why don't you tell us a little bit about this interview that we're going to be sharing with people tonight? Tell us a little bit about who this person is, how this interview came about, and then we'll share the interview.
Yes. So last shore leave, I had the opportunity and the pleasure to meet James Swallow. He has written several Star Trek novels and some of his own novels. He's a man from across the pond, so he has this great accent. I got to spend a few minutes with him talking about his books and from the where he's writing in somebody else's sandbox, and plus some of his own standalone books.
Did you read any of his Star Trek stuff?
Oh, I've read all of his Star Trek novels.
Okay.
I've been a Star Trek novel reader for over 30 years, so I've definitely read his Star Trek novels and enjoyed them. So, he was on a panel with Dayton Ward and David Mack about why we're not getting as many Star Trek novels as we used to. I got to talk to him and meet him at Shore Leave this past year. It was fun.
Good. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and share this interview, and then we'll come back afterwards and wrap up the show. All right. hope you enjoyed the interview with, is it James Swallow, right?
Yes.
And so be sure to look him up. You can find him, I'm sure, wherever books are found, if I can speak here tonight. And yeah, awesome. Well, in 2 weeks, we'll probably be either reviewing a movie or we'll figure out something else to talk about. And then we will continue this villain discussion because we've only apparently touched the tip of the iceberg.
Yes.
So the next one we'll have to do is who are the biggest villains in Marvel?
I don't think it's nearly as fun, but that's okay.
No, I think it's fun. There's a lot more. All right. I believe that's about it. So it's been great chatting with you guys tonight.
Oh yeah.
It's too bad none of us have any real opinions.
Yeah, not at all. Not at all. All right. Well, I believe that's it. Miles, why don't you go ahead and take us out of the show?
All right. Till next time, good night and good luck.
We'll see ya.
Keep your tips on the table.
And go boldly to SciFi Diner Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. Send us your listener feedback at sci-fi diner podcast at gmail.com. And don't forget to look us up on YouTube at SciFi Diner Podcast, where all of these wonderful shows are hopefully being posted. And you get to see our reactions and how we look at each other with disgust on episodes like this.
Yes.
And they get to see my cat ears.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
cat ears, absolutely. Yeah, and we should do some feedback, Dave. We talked about that too, pulling some feedback from YouTube into the show, then.
Yes. Yes.
So,
Yes, we should.
And you guys did a good job of posting to Instagram, sort of. I mean, some of your pictures got cut off, but that's okay.
Oh, yeah.
you just saw my chest instead of the head. You got it.
Yes. I need more pictures.
That's
Chop,
right.
chop, gentlemen.
That's right.
I have plenty, and I just didn't send them.
Oh, shit.
All right. Well, so 2 weeks from now, do we want to do what do we want to do? Do we want to do a movie again? Do we want to
Yeah.
make it? Do you want to do like more of a news a news update?
I think a movie would be good. It'd be kind of good to cleanse our palate. Just do something else.
Yeah. Let's
Okay.
You have traumatized this man by suggesting.
That's why we should get, we were pretty rough on Miles here. We'll give him a bone. Why don't we review the final countdown for next time?
Okay.
Oh, I'm all for it. Final countdown it is.
That would be a lot of fun to review that movie.
There you go.
Yep, sounds good.
So on March.
What happened with Akira? Is it like completely screwed up?
It's still on YouTube, but the audio is a little.
We're missing audio.
Yeah.
Oh no. From because I thought Dave had audio.
It wasn't much
the audio
better.
I got from Dave on it was bad.
Oh.
Scott's mic was kind of cutting in and out constantly. Mine was like super hot. Like I was yelling over everybody. I think I got that fixed for this one. I did a test before we started recording.
Angry.
Yeah, well, I wasn't, but
Dave's just hot in general.
hot-blooded, check it and see.
I don't know that song. I'm too young.
Foreigner.
I'm just looking at a picture of Chrissy as a fairy.
Yes.
With your ice wings.
Yeah.
I have fun. I came very close to posting the ice sculpture of Mario that I found on our podcast one. I'm still debating about it because I love finding nerddom in the wild.
So what are we looking at, March 5th?
Yes.
Yes.
That works.
March 5th, we'll look at the final countdown.
That works.
All right, friends.
All right, I got to get going here, but it's good chatting with everyone. I loved the discussion tonight. It was fantastic.
Always fun.
All right.
Good night,
and
gentlemen.
we'll catch.
Yep.
Bye.